Are we on? Are you sure? You sure? Absolutely, positively.
You know what?
Is it for me?
The phone is dead.
Oh,
There's
the phone's
no
dead?
phone.
Oh, okay. If you're trying to get through, well, it may be only from in here. Yeah, check with. Because it used to do that all the time. Where you can only come in with it, but it's not even flashing up there. If you've been trying to call in, sorry about that. Just realized.
You need a test caller.
Yeah.
Well, what I didn't see
There's
was
nothing. Yeah, there's nothing up there. Try calling in and see what happens. It should have. Yeah. It's got everything it looks like. Well, okay, let's get started.
okay.
We'll worry about that later.
I just happened to notice that.
Freedom Forum 2, on this the 4th day of the 3rd month, year of our Lord Jesus the Christ, 2015. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together tonight and ask that you would give us the strength, the wisdom, the courage, and the patience to do your will in all things. In Jesus the Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. We got another little video to show. You want to go ahead and we'll pull that up next.
Yeah, we'll show that one next.
Go ahead and holler when you get that ready, Tom. I think I'm just going to disconnect this thing. It's been acting up anyway.
Facebook.
Facebook
pulled his page.
Pulled his page.
And I'll tell you what, I saw him on Fox the next morning, and he nailed it. I mean, I don't know where this kid came out of.
Yeah,
he nailed it.
I got an article about that, and they basically said the government censors were at work there, pulling him off of Facebook.
Well, he outed Obama.
Yeah.
But you know what? I got it on my computer. We're going to show
Well,
that
we had it
next Thursday.
We had it on. We got it on the video, the copy of last week's show too. It's on the stick. We got plenty of copies of it. So if anybody wants to see that and they can't get it, holler. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and show another little video here.
It's on Hillary.
About Hillary.
Hillary. Oh, got to take Jim in.
Had full discretion on what was handed over due to the emails coming from a personal email account and not a state.gov account. What's worse is that Mrs. Clinton not only used her personal email account for official government business, but that she never even bothered to set up a State Department email account at all. Now, Clinton is not the first or only government official to face similar problems. Her predecessor, Condoleezza Rice, was known to seldom use email at all in any of her official correspondence with world leaders. Colin Powell, who also served as George W. Bush's Secretary of State, he was also known to use a personal email account as well. Although during his tenure from 2001 to 2005, the Federal Records Act had not been updated to include email as a formal record at all at that time. Also, most recently, the DOD's Chuck Hagel, he too apparently did not use a government-issued email account during his time as Secretary of Defense. A recent FOIA request by a reporter at Vice Media received a response from the DOD that said the request was closed on the basis that Hagel did not have an official email account with the DOD. This certainly, though, does not help Hillary Clinton's image that the Clintons think they're above the law and are surrounded by enablers. Now, perhaps, though, the most interesting thing about all of this is that back in 2013, one of Clinton's aides had their emails hacked, and it was revealed that Hillary had ostensibly been using emails tied to a special domain email called clintonemail.com. Now, based on Internet Registry records, that domain name had been created and registered on January 13th, 2009, just 1 week before President Obama was sworn into office, and on exactly the day that Clinton was to begin her confirmation hearings for the Secretary of State position. In Washington, I'm Manila Chan, RT.
Russian television,
I
in
don't
RT.
know.
I think that is.
Yeah.
That was, yeah,
Russia Today.
Russia Today, okay. They had some pretty good stuff on there, like Al Jazeera has some pretty good stuff
Yeah.
once in a while.
It goes to show you what's going on in government.
Well, the conventional controlled codependent media is not going to show you a lot of this stuff.
Nope.
Uh,
But we have to find out a lot of stuff from the BBC, and BBB. Better
It's
Business
Better Business
Bureau.
Bureau, yes, them two.
and I mean foreign entities, because the media over here
Yeah.
just is bought and paid for. Period.
Yep.
I said that.
Did you say that? Yeah, you
bought
said
and
that.
paid for.
Yep, they are.
Uh-oh.
This has come out innumerable times over the years.
I mean, I found that and I watched that video and I
Yeah.
thought, it's a good thing. It's done very well.
The most disturbing thing about this is that Hillary's email has been used to transmit, because they've
Oh,
gotten
yeah.
some of the emails, and one of them, it's made mention in there that this is highly classified information and not to be distributed to anybody else. Well, excuse me, but a conventional email that you or I send out without anything beyond a Norton or one of those conventional security programs, and even those are easy to hack into by somebody that really knows what they're doing. So a foreign entity that wanted to know everything about what Hillary was doing, it'd be no problem for them to tap into her email server and have everything that she did.
Do you think they really cared?
Oh yeah, they do. A guy like Putin, he's going to want that information so he can use that for blackmail.
But I mean, do you think Hillary really cared?
Oh, Hillary, no. That's why she did it.
Yeah.
She didn't really care about this stuff. These people,
Y'all elected her for president in 2016.
well, hopefully this and the deal with their
Foreign money.
foreign money that they've been raking in, foreign and corporate, international mega businesses have been given to the Clintons also in their,
Totally a violation.
what do they call that thing? It's a what? Foundation, yeah. The Clinton Foundation has been raking in all kinds of money. And it's kind of coincidental that immediately on the coattails of some trip to, say, Saudi Arabia that Hillary's made as Secretary of State, and some deal that she's made with the Saudis behind the scenes, in her position as Secretary of State, and then coincidentally, in less than a week, the Saudis make a rather substantial contribution to the Clinton Foundation. That's just coincidental. That's not.
Coincidental.
It's like this Common Core stuff. That's not a conflict of interest.
Not a conflict of interest. I mean, you make $25,000 to $100,000 a year, and you're making decisions on it.
And that's the only source of income you've got. Now, Hillary, I mean,
It's not a bad source.
no, but Hillary makes that much in one. Well, Bill was making that much in one speaking engagement,
Oh yeah.
and more.
But the whole thing is I step back to the 2012 campaign. Where were contributions coming for Obama? That's a proven fact.
Yeah. Now, see, all this money that's been put in there by these foreign countries over the last several years, going into their foundation, and the foundation, I bet you they can figure out a way to get the foundation money into a presidential campaign. I bet you they can
Yeah.
figure out how to do it.
I mean, You and I, we say it all the time when we're talking. If we really knew everything that was
Well-
going on,
Yep. If the folks out there knew everything that we know about what's going on that we're not telling you about, and more to come, apparently. So, oh well,
a caller.
go ahead, take that call.
Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, I was calling to see if y'all had seen the article on Gun Owners of America. It says under Kansas State Senate by a vote of 31-7 approved Senate Bill 45, the constitutional carry legislation.
I've heard.
Then I had a question. What did y'all think of the Israeli Prime Minister's speech?
Well, first let's go back to the first question on that Kansas bill. I don't know what, there's so many pieces of legislation floating around the state houses now. Cam Edwards, every day at 4 o'clock on Sportsman's Channel, updates us on that stuff. But basically, that's for Kansas to worry about, really. But there's some really good stuff out there. For example, there's one in U.S. Congress that will, if a state has a concealed carry permit, then they can travel you can travel to another state through a state that won't allow you to do that right now. The Fed, if this were to pass, which I don't think it will, then they would require that be honored as far as you passing through the state, and then the state you're going to, if they've got a concealed carry permit, then it's okay for you to use yours in that state. There's also some states that have bills right now, and it may be this Kansas one. I think that Kansas one may be one of them that's going to allow people to carry concealed or open without a state permit. Now, they'll still have their permit structure so that if they want to carry in another state concealed that still keeps the concealed permit, they'll have to have the permit from Kansas to carry. But again, though, it goes back to responsibility. If you don't get a permit to carry, you make sure that you're well trained in doing it, is the bottom line. Because a lot of people these days, and we've run into them, that swear up and down they're in favor of Article 2 of the Bill of Rights, but they haven't learned the first thing about, all they know is which end of the firearm the bullet comes out of. That's it. The training has got to be increased, people. You've got to get your training in. And we harp on this at the meetings and give you some pointers and stuff you can do without having to go to the range. So get your training in.
Practice at home.
Practice at home without shooting. You make sure your weapon's unloaded 3 times. I know of somebody that shot 2 TVs that way while he was doing his dry fire training. So, I mean, his wife was not too happy about.
Honey, we need a couple
Yeah,
of new
we're
TVs.
gonna have to get another TV.
There goes American Idol.
So anyway, the second question about Netanyahu's speech. I've got Netanyahu's book here, Fighting Terrorism, which I'm going to comment about next up.
Green.
I listened to some of his. There's some stuff going on. I couldn't listen to the whole thing, but I listened to some of it and then listened to the commentators on both sides afterward. And the Democrats, their comments about his speech were totally unwarranted.
Nancy was crying.
Pelosi claimed that she was crying in the audience over this stuff. And if she was crying over that, then the woman has got a problem. She needs to see psychiatric help if she's not already. Yeah,
Really?
she's a nutcase.
And
Okay,
then-
which we've been saying it, now we've got the proof. But Netanyahu had a lot of good stuff to say, but you've also got to put him into the context of what I'm going to fix and to talk about. The guy is no friend of ours, first of all. He was an American. He was born and raised in Chicago.
Really?
I don't know if he still holds dual citizenship or not. Probably does. Still have U.S. citizenship. I have not heard anybody mention that. He was Mossad, which was is their secret service, their equivalent of the CIA, Delta Force, and a few other agencies rolled up into one. They're very nasty people. When they want to do something, they're going to do it, regardless of who gets in their way. And they know how to do it. And you can tell by his demeanor, he's basically the Putin of Israel in more ways than one. Not just as prime minister. They have a similar background. And, but his speech was good. There was a lot of stuff in there that was appropriate, but then there was other things that, again, goes back to him being a Putin type. But the dutiful Congress was giving him plenty of applause for things like his comment, "Enemy of my enemy is still my enemy," that kind of thing, which is true, okay? The enemy of my friend, or the enemy of my enemy is my friend, is an Arabic and a Chinese, probably originated with the Chinese because they go back far earlier than do the Arabs. Everybody thinks that the Arab culture or the Muslim culture was so refined back in the Middle Ages. No, they got it from the Chinese. Through their trade with the Chinese, they got their refinements. And all you got to do is ask yourself, what happened to it? What happened to their refinements? Well, they're gone. It couldn't last because it was not original with them, for one thing. But anyway. All right. Anything else?
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
All right. Fighting terrorism. Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, 1995. He was Prime Minister in 95.
Really?
Yeah. He has been off and on Prime Minister since then. Okay. I believe this is his third term that he's got now. With the fourth term, he's probably going to be a shoo-in for the election coming up.
You think?
Yeah. Especially after that speech.
Obama's boys are working hard to make sure it don't happen.
Well, Obama's boys are compared to Netanyahu, Obama's boys are exactly what Obama is. A sycophant and imbeciles. Now, in his book, he's got a lot of interesting stuff in here that we could take to heart. But then again, there's such things that the ideal of an absolute civil liberty, whether a leftist liberty such as absolute free speech or a rightist liberty such as the absolute right to bear arms, should be tempered by political realities. And the attempt to apply it in its pristine form has grave consequences. When a society tries to grant such pockets of unlimited freedom, it provides the proverbial 99% of normal citizens with supposed rights, with rights in quotes, that they neither want nor need. Okay? The right to call for the murder of what they deem an obnoxious author, or the right to own a grenade launcher. But there are always those in the other 1% who have granted such freedoms are capable of coming up with ways to abuse them. Okay. That lays the groundwork for his attitude about civil liberties, if you will, or our Bill of Rights specifically. Advocates of absolute civil liberties forget that legally protected freedoms are not ends in and of themselves. They are means to ensuring the health and well-being of the citizens. Well, that's a crock. The United States Constitution, said Justice Robert Jackson, is not a suicide pact. But when a protected right in practice results in the encouragement and breeding of terrorist monstrosities ready to devour other members of society, then it's clear that such a right has ceased to serve its true end and must be either revised or reduced. Well, this basically is telling us that he does not want us to own firearms, and he as much as says it in other places in the book. Now, he has sources in here. He talks about what happened during World War II and during the War for Southern Independence. And then he gives a footnote. This is critical. This is very interesting too. He footnotes this paragraph about how the Supreme Court and all decided that everything that Lincoln did to overturn civil liberties and everything that was done to the Japanese Americans during the Second World War was all okay with the Supreme Court. And for his reference, he uses Joseph W. Bishop in his article, Legal Measures to Control Terrorism in Democracies, in Benjamin Netanyahu, editor, International Terrorism, Challenge and Response, 1981. Wait a minute. I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to quote, or I'm going to use as a reference to back up what I'm saying about a fairly important issue, something that was in a book I previously wrote and edited. Wait, I'm using me for a reference? That's not good scholarship, first of all, okay? So you look at these kind of things and you'll see that he's basically using himself to prove his comments. No, in reality, the Supreme Court, after both wars, ruled those activities unconstitutional. Afterward, because during, they were under a certain duress. It was called the bayonets of the Army, both wars. But afterward, both Supreme Courts ruled that those executive actions were not warranted. Okay? So he's lying here about that. Now I want to look at his definition of international terrorism. That is the use of terrorist violence against a given nation by another state which uses the terrorists to fight a proxy war as an alternative to conventional war. Well, what he's defining there is guerrilla warfare, not terrorism. He needs to be much more precise. Terroristic acts in a situation like that are one thing. But the problem is that he defines anything attacking the home country as being terrorism. And I like to use the example of a school bus. If terrorists blow up, or individuals fighting the Israeli government blow up a school bus full of Israeli soldiers, is that terrorism? Number one. Is it? No. If they blow up a school bus full of children, number two, is that terrorism? Yes. What's the difference? Think about it. The soldiers are bona fide combatants. They are bona fide targets of war.
Not the children.
School children are not.
Nope.
That's the difference. Not to him. And you see this in the conventional controlled codependent media in this country especially all the time. Oh, they kidnapped an Israeli soldier in the Golan Heights. It was an act of terrorism. No, it wasn't. He wasn't kidnapped. He was captured as a prisoner of war. Now, they have treated, what's interesting is when that situation happens, the Israelis do not negotiate with terrorists. So instead, they will trade 100 of these so-called terrorists that they have in prison for that one soldier in a prisoner exchange. Wait a minute. Is that negotiating with terrorists?
Last time I checked.
Under their definition, yeah, it is.
I mean, you
So
gave them
that
to get.
it's the same thing that Obama did with that guy
Took the
Bergdahl.
words right out of my mouth.
Traded 5 top-ranking Al-Qaeda types for him, and he was, in all likelihood, and they had the information. They kind of knew he was a defector. He was not a prisoner of war, as it were.
You think that's ever going to come to fruition?
Probably not. The Army wants to charge him with desertion, and Obama's trying to stop him. I don't know what the legal lines are there between Obama and the Army in this case, if Obama can.
They don't want it to go to court because all those other guys are gonna testify. And then he's gonna look bad for, the whole
Well,
deal
yeah.
is he will look bad.
Right, that's why
Key
he's doing
statement.
it. Yeah,
He will look bad.
Yep.
Because of what he said he did it for,
yep,
which was an absolute
yep.
lie, 1,650.
Now, at the back of the book, Netanyahu gives, is it 10 things to do? What is to be done, his last chapter. And these are things that countries need to do. Number one, impose sanctions on suppliers of nuclear technology to terrorist states. Well, duh. They should do that with everybody. Number two, impose diplomatic, economic, military sanctions on terrorist states themselves. Neutralize terrorist enclaves. Freeze financial assets in the West of terrorist regimes and organizations. A lot of this we're doing already, except that we're not freezing the financial assets. Otherwise, we'd have to freeze all the financial assets of the Saudi Arabians.
Cool.
They say, yes.
They're our biggest enemy.
The Saudis are supplying the most support to the terrorist networks worldwide.
Exactly. They are our biggest enemy.
Share intelligence. Well, guess what? Obama has just told Netanyahu we're not going to share intelligence with him now. He's having a conniption over that speech yesterday. Wait, if we don't share intelligence with the Israelis, let's see, who comes out on the short stick of that?
We do.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
The Israelis have the Human Intelligence Network,
Oh.
HUMINT. They've got the agents in place all over the Middle East. If we don't get any intel from them, ooh. Now, I suspect
show
that
you.
there are enough backdoor channels that the people that need to get it here will get it. But as far as the Obama Eastas directly, they'll kind of sandbag them.
Big time.
Revise legislation to enable greater surveillance and action against organizations inciting to violence, subject to periodic renewal. Wait a
Boy,
minute.
did we
We're not
do that,
we're
huh?
not inciting to violence though, but we're still included in these groups that are being. See, this is being used already, and it also happens to be. It's
So
being.
he's the one that gave him the idea to.
No, but they helped him. Okay. Now, under this subgroup about revising legislation, outlaw fundraising and channeling of funds to terrorist groups, permit investigation of groups preaching terror and planning a violent overthrow to government, loosen warrant requirements in terrorist cases, restrict ownership of weapons. Here we go.
Oh. Numero uno.
Forbidding the ownership of machine guns is not a denial of the right to own a weapon for self-defense. It is a denial of the right to organize private armies. What? How do you equate machine guns with private armies?
Need a heck
A
of
right
lot
which
more
no
than a
society
machine gun.
can grant without eventually having to fight those armies. The continued existence in the United States of heavily armed anti-government militias numbering thousands of members is a grotesque distortion of the idea of civil freedom which should be brought to a speedy end.
He's trying.
Well, tighten immigration laws, require periodic tighten their immigration laws? Oh,
Wait a minute.
Obama's not doing that. The government's not doing that. They're doing the
Tighten
reverse.
what?
Immigration law.
Don't build the wall.
Oh, well.
We should build the wall like the Saudis are.
Yep. And then he goes into other things. But the critical thing there is all over the world, governments are now looking at revising their civilian ownership of firearms because of everything going on in their countries. And what did I tell you after that Paris thing? The video that was taken of the guys that were doing the shooting out on the street by two different people, had those two different people been armed and able to properly handle the weapons that they were armed with, they could have taken out the bad guys in both cases.
Mm-hmm.
And there wouldn't have been any more situation. Okay? And it happens all over the country here now. Usually for personal self-defense at home. But what's amazing is that the anti-gunners in this country keep saying that if you have a gun in the house, you're more likely to get shot with it yourself than you are to shoot a bad guy breaking into your house. And that is an abject and total lie. That is a complete and utter lie. Additionally, they would have you believe that the police can handle anything like this. And the problem there is that there are far more good shootings by civilians than there are by cops, because the cops don't know who the good guy is. They don't know who belongs.
Yeah,
The
but if it's
civilians,
in your house.
You only get there a couple minutes after it's happened.
yeah, and the cops usually only get there after it's happened anyway. So, folks, the moral of that story in the beginning of this segment is very plain as the nose on your face. Article 2 says that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay? But it's prefaced by the notion that a well-regulated militia is necessary to the security of a free state. You're the militia. Well-regulated means not lots of rules. It means well-trained and equipped. You are obligated as an American to own militia firearms and know how to use them. You are obligated. You're not obligated to go vote. That's not a right, by the way. That's a privilege granted to you by the state of Louisiana. They can decide, if they really want to decide, under Article 9 of the Bill of Rights, they get to decide who votes and who doesn't. So, owning a firearm, though, is an obligation. Just as serving on a jury and deciding whether the law that's being decided there is a just and constitutional law also, not just the guilt or innocence of the accused. All right. Good intentions will always be pleaded for every assumption of authority. It is hardly too strong to say that the Constitution was made to guard the people against the dangers of good intentions. There are people in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be good masters, but they mean to be masters. Webster. Who's that sound like? Hillary? Hillary's going to be good as president.
What difference does it make?
From what we got now, she'll be worse.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Moving onward, Jim's got some stuff on the Common Core issue.
Textbooks.
Details.
Y'all hear about Pearson education. This came from Bill Courage at www.thereportcard.org. So I'm not going to read the first paragraph, but the second one's interesting. According to February 2012 study by Citizens for National Security about Muslim-biased textbooks in Florida, 4 are published by Pearson. Act for America conducted a 2011 study of Muslim-biased textbooks in America and concluded that Pearson published 13 titles where significant Muslim bias was uncovered. For those of you who don't know, Pearson is the person that writes, the company that writes the PARC test. At the time of the state, Gaddafi was leader in Libya. Oh, how'd Libya get in this? And promoted his radical brand of Islam. The Arab world and Muslim Brotherhood have shown great interest in using education in the United States to indoctrinate, oh boy, American students about Islam. I can tell you, I have seen several parents have emailed me or shared on Facebook this exact stuff. The publication reviewed Pearson's 2013 World History, this is a good one, a high school level textbook as an example of strident Islamic bias. In other words, the first 100 pages of American history were not there. According to Stanley Kurtz in the National Review, the Saudis have made strong gains in penetrating American schools. And not finished with this article, but I want you to understand, the Saudis are not our friend at all, in all aspects of whatever. Now, here's what comes up. How did the Saudis do it? Very carefully and very cleverly. It turns out that the system of federal subsidies to university programs of Middle East studies under the Title VI of the Higher Education Act had been serving as kind of a Trojan horse for Saudi influence over American K through 12 education. Federally subsidized Middle East study centers are required to pursue public outreach. The entails designing lesson plans and seminars on the Middle East for Americans K through 12 teachers. These university distributed teaching aids slip into the K-12. Don't miss what it says there. University distributed. In other words, they're teaching the kids that are going to be teachers to do this stuff. The university distributed teaching aids slip into K-12 curriculum without being subject, here we go again, to the normal public vetting process.
Well, that would be inconvenient.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the federal government, which both subsidizes and lends its stamp of approval to these special K through 12 course materials on the Middle East, has effectively abandoned the oversight of the program that pervades them, Title VI. Then I'll skip to the last page because there's more interesting stuff in that paragraph. So let's review. The United States government gives money and a federal seal of approval to a university Middle East Study Center. That center offers government-approved K through 12 Middle East Studies curriculum to America's teachers. But in fact, that the curriculum has been bought and paid for by the Saudis, who may even have trained the personnel who operate the university outreach program. Meanwhile, the American government is asleep at the wheel. I don't think they're asleep. And then finally, would it not follow that a large Libyan stake in Pearson would tend to influence how textbooks are written? Key Pearson textbook consultants on Islam, Susan Douglas and Shabir Mansouri, have both been connected to the Muslim Brotherhood, who's in the White House, and voiced strong supports of Islamic madrasa Islamic schools where hate for Jews and Christians is a daily lesson. The Pearson Libyan connection and others who may own Pearson bear deeper scrutiny. Scrutiny. Here's the thing. All you people sit out there and you don't worry about the park test. You don't worry about none of this crap. You just stay at home. And eventually, we will have no Christians. We will have an Islamic nation. And if you think I'm crazy for saying that, I'm not. I've been at this for 3.5 years with this Common Core crap. And right there is valid proof of who Pearson is. Pearson writes the park test. Period.
And remember, the largest charter school private corporation in this country is Turkish.
Yes.
Now, the Turks are Muslims.
Yeah.
Is the picture starting to dawn on folks?
At the top of this article, it says, these are the tags for this Act for America, Anti-Christian, CAIR, Citizens for National Security, Common Core Standard, Educational, Muslim indoctrination, and Pearson Publishing. Wow. I mean, you wonder why parents are trying to opt out of this crap? There's a lot of parents getting smarter. But you want to know what the problem is? The parents love their kids, and they're worried about retaliation to the children. Because we have some spineless superintendents and whatever. I said that.
Yeah. You want me to say it?
Yeah, you can say it too.
We have some cowards in the superintendent's offices.
So, let me ask you something. If I would have the time, which we only have 3 minutes, if I would read this tomorrow, how do you think that would affect well, I know 4 people on that board, on the SPECI board, it would affect. But what about the other 7? Especially John White, my friend. I'm going to tell you something interesting about John White. He keeps his enemies close. Whenever, this is ironic, and actually, Elbert Gilroy took a picture to prove this. I'll go in and sit down, especially in the Senate one, right in front of the Senate education guy, and you know who sits next to me? John White.
Well, you see, he's used to this. He's used to this.
Oh yeah, that's all he does.
Okay, so he's gonna, if you were to pull out one of these and start doing this, he figured, well, he's not gonna notice me looking over his shoulder to see what he's saying, because people that are texting, they don't notice anything that's going on around them. There could be a rhino charging them from directly in front of them.
Fake antenna.
Yeah, get a fake, yeah.
Fake antenna and put it up, and then sit it right over here on right by his chair with the antenna and see what he does. But I find that ironic. I have gotten, I won't say I, but many people have gotten the attention of John White. But I have never heard one person call him a liar like I have. And if I do that, I got it right here. This is all about Pearson, people. Good Lord, wake up, opt out. I would love to see 100,000 people across the state opt out. You know why? What is John White going to do? How's he going to explain that he's the leader of the state of Louisiana, superintendent of education, executive director with the Park Consortium, and he can't control his people who opt out? Opt out, people. Nothing's going to happen to your kids. Nothing's going to happen to your school. You know why? Because the scores for these tests are not, I heard October 1st, but now I've heard as late as December. You want to know why? They will have time to manipulate the scores.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's going to happen to your children, I promise you. And if they do, come slap me. It's like, I mean, this is, oh God.
You gonna read that to Bessie?
I'm gonna try. And you only have so long, and I got some other stuff.
Yeah.
Give them copies of it.
That's what I should do. They already know. They already know.
Not necessarily.
But I'll print it.
Remember what the distinguished state representative from Tangipahoa told us at your meeting.
Oh yeah,
They don't know what's going on. They don't have the time to know all of this stuff. So we gotta educate them.
to make up.
And of course, the Bessie people are no better. Bessie is only a part-time job with them.
They don't get paid.
And
Did you know that? They don't
paid
get
for
a
that.
salary. All they get is expenses.
And so they got to have a full-time job that they're worried. At the Bessie meeting, they're there texting on their full-time job because they just got a critical thing just came in and they had to handle it. And so in the middle of the Bessie meeting, they're busy doing this stuff, not paying attention to the people.
The other shout out I want to do, and at this point, I haven't seen anybody step up in this region to run for the Bessie board. Good Lord, we need a good educator that understands Common Core to run against Holly Bofield. I don't want, I'm telling you, her head is, She belongs, now I found out, to more organizations and goes around the country and giving speeches, which I'm sure she gets paid for. And then her educational consulting business. I gotta start consulting business. But we were talking about that. I couldn't do that. Because morally I would be in the ditch.
Well, to be a consultant, you gotta take money for what you're doing.
Yeah, and then I did get a call from two lobbyists, this was interesting, and I hadn't revealed this. I got a call from several lobbyists that I met over the years, and they want to bring me on. The money's good,
Lord, I tell you what's gonna happen.
but the problem is,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I told you was gonna happen. They're good at buying off people that they don't want to shut up, that they want to shut up, they don't want to talking.
I asked them a question, both of them. I said, so if I become a lobbyist with your group, can I talk at anything I want to in the Capitol? And the answer was no. You have to stay within the guidelines and whatever we're lobbying for.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you know what? I have a problem with that. I'll do this without getting paid and probably get more things done than you will.
Yep. Back on this Muslim thing. This
man.
article here, again from Rich Lowry,
G.I. John.
about Jihadi John. It tracks this because this was first. This was started years ago. This is not new.
This is not
These
just
Muslim
6 years
indoctrination textbooks
No.
started years ago. Well, the result is what you're seeing now with these misguided fools flocking to ISIS. And this guy, Jihadi John, is a classic example.
ago. Oh, yeah.
The sad plight of Jihadi John. Mohammed Emwazi, a.k.a. Jihadi John, the masked British-accented butcher of hostages on ISIS videos, makes an unlikely victim, to say the least. Well, the entire point of the video is to advertise his savagery and that of the hellish cause he serves. Yet, shamefully, even he can claim the expiating status of victimhood and get a sympathetic hearing. According to his own self-pitying emails prior to his star turn as a knife-wielding executioner, Emwazi was harried by British intelligence beyond human endurance. Some so-called civil libertarians have picked up on his plight to argue that a good, promising young Muslim man was pushed into the arms of a medieval terror group by the Brits. What was it the State Department was saying? We needed to have job fairs for these guys. They were poor, and this was what. Well, this is all getting similar. It's a this is actually what they have.
Get them
been,
jobs and they'll quiet
This is actually what they've been saying here lately. Jihadi John, radicalized by Britain, unquote, was the title of a news release from the terrorist defending British human rights group CAGE, C-A-G-E. It maintains that young Muslims like Mohammed Emwazi have turned to violence because of British counterterrorism policies coupled with long-standing grievances over Western foreign policy. The Washington Post, which broke the news last week that Emwazi was Jihadi John, ran a piece about his run-in with British authorities when trying to travel to Kuwait in 2010, headlined, "The Moment Jihadi John May Have Become a Terrorist." In that incident, Emwazi had traveled back to London from Kuwait and then found that British authorities would not let him fly back to Kuwait again. He was Kuwaiti-born but raised in Britain. That's when he supposedly began to feel intolerably squeezed by the tentacles of the British security state. Of course, it probably didn't help that he was in constant contact by messages of various kinds to these people. I mean, that didn't have anything to do with it, I'm sure.
Nah.
There were, of course, many alternatives available to him. If he were an innocent harassed by an out-of-control security service, he could have started a blog devoted to civil liberties. He could have joined an advocacy group fighting against such abuses. He could have gotten a law degree and fought for his rights and those of others falsely accused. He could have done any of 1,000 things, including, it's worth adding, forswearing any association with Islamic radicalism. But you see, Mohammedanism is such a religion of peace that he decided it was more peaceful to go cut people's heads off than these things that Lowry suggests here, right?
Peace?
Yeah, pieces.
I'm being sarcastic here. What he chose to do was to abscond to Syria, so much for the all-knowing British surveillance state, and decapitate people. What was the extreme provocation that allegedly drove him to such barbarity? He wrote to Cage when he was still in Britain that he felt like a person imprisoned. He had to feel like a person imprisoned because he wasn't actually imprisoned. It was just that his ability to travel overseas was apparently blocked. This, in effect, trapped him in Britain. We still got out. Go ahead and take that one.
Go ahead, caller.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Tom. Good evening, Jim. I don't time to keep it short. We got about 5-6 minutes. I just make a couple quick comments.
Okay.
Yes, I was getting ready to call in, and my first comment was going to be about the Martian. But Tom mentioned her name earlier. Yeah, she cried after the speech, and Obama looked like he wanted to cry. I love it. Obama was so teed off yesterday, he was turning red, man. And it really was. And Nancy Pelosi thinks she cried. The Supreme Court rules that people can only get subsidies and tax credits for Obamacrat if you sign up on the state exchange, which I know you know that.
Yeah.
Because it says in the law that federal exchanges cannot give cannot give the subsidies. So if the Supreme Court rules that it's illegal, then she really gonna cry.
Yep.
And when she said, we need to pass the bill so we can find out who said it. Well, maybe they've been crowds who maybe they'd have caught that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and there's been other bills they have not read.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And do you see now Obama the clown wants to ban certain bullets that go in the AR-15? I'm sure you saw that. Huh?
Yeah, we mentioned that.
We
in the first
talked about
hour.
it earlier.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, I didn't catch. I didn't catch the program right when y'all came on. But that's all I want to say. And one last comment. Ringman, Brother Bowman, Bailey, they're really envious of the Obama administration. You know why? Because they see that there's better clowns there than they have. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Well, the same thing applies to Saturday Night Live. All the people with Saturday Night Live are sweating their jobs when the Obama administration goes out, because all those people are going to be, they've been auditioning for their jobs all along.
Somebody told us that we could probably do SNL.
Who?
Friend
Who said that? Who said that?
Friend of mine said we could do that. We do really good.
I'm insulted now. All right, back to Jihadi John. He was in effect trapped in Britain, where many millions of people would be happy to emigrate on any given day. Not to mention that his surveillance seems to have been entirely justified and, given events, inadequate. Around the same time he was complaining about his unjust treatment at the hands of the British, he expressed sympathy for their sister, Afia Siddiqui. She's an al-Qaeda operative who's serving an 86-year sentence in the U.S. for trying to shoot her interrogators after her capture in Afghanistan. Reports are now emerging of Mwazi's radical associations going back years, suggesting, unsurprisingly, that his turn to ISIS wasn't made on a whim. What accounts for the impulse to find excuses for even the most bloodthirsty monster? It's another way of denying the Islamic character of Islamic terrorism. As if any random person, whether Episcopalian or Buddhist, could have been driven over the edge by such treatment. It's another way of blaming the West for the enemies besieging it and so cloud the moral picture. And finally, it's another way of denying the agency and ultimately the evil of fiends who choose to kill, maim, and terrorize. The real victims, obviously, are the unfortunate souls who happen to fall into their clutches. So, now we had the answer. Jihadi John and all these others have been victimized.
Oh, yeah.
They've been so victimized that they turn to the religion of peace to solve the world's problems.
Christianity problems.
Oh, no, they should have turned to Christianity to
Well, they
solve the
should
world
have,
problems. That is the true religion of peace.
Exactly.
The faith of peace.
Let me say one thing. Put a plug here, St. Edmund's Fish Fry.
Oh, yeah, we forgot the fish fry.
St. Edmund's Fish Fry tomorrow on the corner of Congress and Ambassador from 5 to 7. Good meal, real good meal. I know one of the cooks.
You know,
On Thursday or Friday?
Friday.
Friday, yeah,
Not tomorrow.
Oh, I said tomorrow.
yes, yes.
I lost track.
We'll
It's
announce it.
Friday,
We'll announce it again tomorrow.
it's 5 to 7 p.m.
When do y'all run out of food?
We don't.
You don't run out?
We try not to.
So at
But
7,
it would be a good thing.
you still got food at 7?
Yeah, we have food at 7.
Okay. I'm gonna come at 2 minutes to 7 and
Don't
make
do
y'all a
that.
deal on what's
Might-
left.
There might be a slight potato salad coleslaw shortage. I think we just went.
No, it's still on for a half a minute, but,
That's not what
No,
your
potato-
government can do for you. That's what your government is doing to you.
yep, exactly. No, the potato salad, I definitely don't wanna miss out on that. That was good.